Blondine.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to our podcast, and it's nice to be back here this week. We're sort of back up and running after. I know, like it feels like we haven't been here in such a long time.
Just dusting away the cobwebs and.
Yeah.
I killed a cockroach before.
Yes, yeah. That's how long it's been since we've been.
There was a pack of wild raccoons that we had to, and possums that we raccoons. There's no raccoons in New Zealand. Who am I kidding? A small family of possums that we had to fight out of here.
Well, they were actually doing their own podcast. It was much better than this one.
Wildly successful.
You should tune into.
We shouldn't have.
Esoterica raccoon version. We should have been filming them instead of this.
We probably shouldn't have ended that. We ended something potentially great, but that family's on its way now.
Yeah, we actually subcontracted the podcast to them.
Did.
Yeah, it's going to be brought to you by Rocky Raccoon. So it is nice to be back, and
really nice.
Thank you for those of you that have been really patient with us. Patient with us. We
and
do...
no thank you to the people who weren't. No,
yeah.
I'm just getting implying there were people.
How dare you complain about not getting your free content every week?
Yeah.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's beer of the week. Beer of the week. What are we drinking?
Beer of
this
the
week?
fortnight, really.
Beer of the fortnight. Yeah. What are we drinking this week? Actually, we didn't drink beer on our last podcast, did we? We did the Pepsi in the last one, so it's actually beer of the month. Yeah. All right. So what are we drinking? What are we drinking this week, Anthony?
Very excited about
I
that.
know.
We're drinking Chomp. Now, Chomp is a Black Dog brewery company.
Yes.
Brewing company? What am I talking about?
It's
brewing
the-
company.
It's
Drink.
New Zealand Pale Ale. So this is we have done they're in Tiara Valley down there in Wellington, and we have done some of theirs before, haven't we? We did the Dogfather, I think,
And that was fantastic.
That was fantastic. And so we're into their Chomp, which is the New Zealand Pale Ale. And what are you thinking of the New Zealand Pale Ale, the Chomp?
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Which is what I say every single time.
Yeah.
Tune in for episode 26 of Anthony saying, I'm actually really enjoying it.
Well, it's because we don't pick rubbish beers.
No,
like,
that's true. Yeah. That's very true. What I would say is that I'm going through this beer and I don't even realize I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I think it's so good that I'm not even, it's just second nature. I'm not even thinking about it.
It's really drinkable, eh?
Very drinkable.
Yeah.
Tune into episode 26 of
where
James saying
it's really drinkable. But it is. And it's got a bit of a malty taste and things like that. It's a little bit heavier than the Dogfather that we had.
Yeah.
A little bit less hoppy. So if you're not into your like really hoppy beers, it's a really good one. It's a really good pale ale. It's a little bit more malty.
That's really nice.
Yeah. So on the only scale that matters, Anthony, what are you going to give the Chomp?
I think I'm going to give the Chomp a really solid 8.
Yeah, actually, and for once, I'm not going to lowball you, and I'm going to go. Actually, I'm going to give it a really solid 8 as well.
Yeah,
I think it's a great beer. Another great beer by the Black Dog Brewing Company. There, haven't had a bad one from them yet.
No.
It's great beer,
great company, and
yeah.
The loyal, dependable Black Dog Brewing Company.
Well, yeah, you like so far everyone I've picked up from them has been great. Like, you know, I love beer companies like that where you're like, you know, you can go in and you don't have to like think really hard about, hang on, is this one going to be a good one? Is this one, you know, this one's a bit, that's right, this one was a bit average. Like, just everything I picked up from them has been great. So awesome.
It's fantastic.
So coming back a little bit to what we were talking about before, and thank you for being so patient with us. You know, we do try to get podcast content out to you every week, and I think bar this month, with sort of the exception before that, I think we have got content out every week. But this month was just a real struggle. It was a real struggle, like between schedules, illness, just and to be completely honest, just burnout and exhaustion and all of that sort of stuff. It just became too difficult for us to get the podcast out last week, and obviously then again 2 weeks before that, and so we're back on our usual podcast night, which is a Friday night. So we're back here having a chat, which is nice.
Really nice to be back.
It's nice to be back. It is really nice to be back. This evening we wanted to talk a little bit about mental health and a little bit about looking after yourself. A little bit about you know, some negative self-talk and some things like that happens. Now, whenever I was on the stream the other night, streaming Dishonored, And obviously, again, normally Anthony and I would be streaming together
Yeah.
on a Sunday, but Anthony was so crook. So whenever I was on there, I was having a bit of a chat to some of you out there about how like we sort of felt very much like we were letting you down by not bringing this content out and not making sure that the podcast was up there every Monday, and we were sort of like, we're letting people down, we're letting people,
It
people
actually
need to see this.
yeah.
We put ourselves down terribly, and we start going, I'm useless at this, I suck, I'm a terrible person because I'm not doing this. And I was thinking really hard about this, and I was thinking that there is, in my mind, I honestly believe, and maybe this is tied up in what I do for a living. I honestly believe that intelligence as such, or success, is not predetermined. Do you get what I mean? Like, so I don't think that you sit there and go, this person's that much dumber than this person or whatever, and that there are smart people and there are dumb people and that sort of stuff. I really think, I honestly really do, I really think it comes down to that talk you have in your head.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, so let's say, like I honestly believe that the difference between people that we consider to be intelligent or people we consider to be successful, I honestly believe that the difference is they have the same negative self-talk in their head, but there's one extra step to it, right? Mm-hmm. So we all know, and I always use this example with my kids, and I use this example because it was true for me in high school, is I sit there and I go, I suck at maths. Yeah. I suck at maths.
Reinforcing
I hate maths.
Reinforcing
I'm terrible. Yeah, reinforcing that idea. And I think that everybody has that with, maybe not maths, but everybody has that, with things that they maybe aren't so good at, they don't pick up that easily or whatever. And I was thinking about what's the difference between, say, I like to consider myself a reasonably intelligent person. I don't think I'm dumb. And I sit there and I go, well, why wasn't I so good at maths? Whereas I was, much better at English or much better at, that sort of stuff. It can't be because I'm incapable of learning.
No, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because if I was incapable of learning, then I would have sucked at English and sucked at everything else. And I sat there and I thought really hard about what's the difference between, like, when I'm doing a theatrical show, right? And I sit there and I go, I don't, or whenever I'm teaching a piece of music and I go, I don't know this at all. I don't know this at all. But do you know what the difference is? And I think this is what comes onto the end of that negative self-talk, is the one extra step, which is, but I'll get it.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that makes such a huge difference. I suck at maths. I'm no good at this. But I'll get it. But I'll get it. It'll come to me. I'll get it. I'll get there. I'll somehow I will get to the stage where I know this. And I mean, you must have had the same things, whenever you're doing sort of like shows
whenever,
and stuff.
like, so basically, as you've been talking, in my mind, I'm going, yes, there's so much I want to say about that. So, just going on from what you were saying, think about every single day when you wake up. And there's some days you wake up and you're fine. There's some days you wake up and you think, oh God, like, I'm attacking another day. And there's so many times when you, for example, go to work or to school and the day is either, sometimes the day can be really difficult or really quite easy, or not necessarily easy, but completely different, purely based on your state of mind.
Absolutely.
That's it. Quite often, it's purely your state of mind.
Yep.
Your entire day is easier, or you're happier purely based on things come more naturally to you throughout the day, based on how healthy your mind happens to be. And I've had this sort of difficulty recently where one day I'll be absolutely fine, the next I'll really struggle.
Yeah.
And then some days you sort of, it's almost like a veil is being pulled off when you remember the reasons why you should be really happy. There's other days when that veil doesn't quite come off, and you can't, you're like a horse in a race where you're narrow vision, you can't quite see,
you're just running.
You are, and you can't, and you don't stop to think, you lose all perspective, and with that, usually when you lose perspective and ambition and drive, as you said, it makes actually going the extra mile and doing the really hard work difficult.
Yeah.
Because when you, like you were saying with music, when you perform really well in music, it's through hard work, not necessarily talent, but hard work and grit, but to be able to perform hard work and grit, it's through a state of being. It's through how happy you are, and you would have found this when learning new music. It's very difficult when you're not in a good frame of mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're in a good frame of mind, it tends to be easy to push yourself to build some passion. I mean, James and I found this all the time, and I think James will agree with me. Throughout the years. Has been, I can say that now, it has been throughout the years.
Because you're an old man now.
Yeah. Whenever we've attacked anything, and the same goes for like Caroline and ourselves, and whenever we've gone to attack something, it becomes so much easier when you're surrounded or talking to people, in this situation ourselves, who are so like-minded and passionate about that goal. And of course, when you're surrounded by people who are passionate and ambitious, that raises your mental state, and so when you're isolated, it's so easy to fall into the traps of being, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
so I'm going to use a really weird analogy here. So I'm actually going to use a sporting analogy, and I know, shock horror. So I'm going to use a sporting analogy, being the great sportsman that I am. You'll notice, for example, and I can relate this to theatre, and this is why I was thinking about this.
Yeah.
Is that when you stuff up, it's very easy to get isolated, and it's very easy to get into what we sort of affectionately term the quicksand effect, where you flub a line, or you miss a cue, or you do something like that, and you think, God, I've let everybody else down. God, that was shit.
Yeah.
That was
you compound the mistake.
So bad. Yeah. I've got to, I've got to go the extra mile to make sure that I'm not seen as being the weak link in here and everything else like that. And because you're so negative in your own space, you actually get worse and you make more mistakes, and it becomes now. The sporting analogy of this is you will see like top teams, right? Like you watch the All Blacks play. And can you imagine the pressure you're under, right? You've set up for this set play. The set play's going off. You're running along. You're doing the things you should be doing. The pass fires your way. One moment of inattention, you've dropped the ball.
Yeah.
You've dropped the ball. You've lost what is a surefire scoring opportunity. You can imagine like that player sitting there going, I stuffed this up. Like, God, I've let everybody down. Like, it was me that flubbed this. Everything was going perfectly. Everything was going perfectly. What you'll notice, and I've noticed this when watching the sports, is what you'll notice is other team players, at least 2 or 3 people, will come over and be like, hey, it's all right, good job, mate. Good job. Yeah, they'll touch that person and be like, it's okay, cool. And that just brings you back into that slightly more positive headspace of, okay, we're together.
Following on from that, because that's a fantastic analogy. Following on from that, excuse me for a moment. Yep, there we go. Following on from that, okay, so as many of you will know, England has had a pretty bad time at the World Cup. Football World Cup.
No. Surprise.
50 years of hurt. Now, one of the biggest problems England have had has been a psychological problem with penalty shootouts.
They don't do well in penalty shootouts. Yeah, they don't do well in penalty shootouts.
And it's really been since the late 90s.
You've lost it as soon as you get to penalties.
No, 1990s. So, Italia World Cup. So, correct me if I'm wrong. But, so, what...
Sorry, I love saying to me, correct me if I'm wrong. I have no idea, mate.
There'll be comments.
Yeah.
So Gareth Southgate, who's the current manager of England, he's fantastic. I'm a big fan of his. So going into the most recent World Cup, what he did was that when he, first of all, he actually practiced penalty shootouts, which was great, well done. But what he did, because penalty shootouts are one of the most isolating,
you're on your own,
psychologically terrifying moments in sport. Mm-hmm. Absolutely horrible, and especially on a pitch, and you're surrounded by 60,000 plus people, and it's you versus the goalkeeper.
Yep.
So what Gareth did, which was very, very, I thought, very clever from a psychological point of view, he said that because usually your players have to wait in the the middle of the pitch. Mm-hmm. So what he made the England players do would start walking at the same time as the person leaving the spot, so that they met in the middle, halfway, and they actually communicate, so that there was less time. He essentially cut the time in half that the player was isolated. Which was very, little things clever. It was clever, and that way there was less time for them to get in their own heads about which is the worst thing that can happen, being in your own head. And as you say, and the whole reason you made the metaphor is, as soon as you're isolated and get in your own head, that's when problems start to occur. Absolutely.
And I honestly believe this. And I look at it in my own approach, right? I look at it in my own approach to things. Now, if somebody sat down and put a maths problem in front of me, right, and said, off you go, work it out. Now, I might have the skills to work out that problem. And to be honest, I probably do somewhere, as long as it's not incredibly complex maths, like, if it's algebra or whatever, I've probably got the skills to work it out. But my immediate reaction to it is, I don't know this. I don't know this. I don't know. I don't know how to do this. And so I'm going to give up, right? And I'm just going to be like, I just don't know. I don't know. Whereas, and I have been put in this situation before. Whereas if somebody approached me with a musical score and went, right, you're teaching this tomorrow, and I don't know it, I would sit there and I would go, okay, cool, I can do this. I know I can do this. Like, I can do this and I can look through this. And that's and yes, you could argue that I have slightly more skills in music than I do in maths. However, at the same time, it's a completely different mental attitude. I know I can get there. It's the same as learning lines, right? There is always a crisis moment, and I'm sure you feel the same way. There's always a crisis moment when you're about 2-3 weeks out from a show. There's always a crisis moment where you go, good God, this is never going to come together. I'm never going to get all these lines down. I'm never going to do this. Come opening night, it'll be down. It'll be done. You'll know it. And sometimes it's remembering that and going, no, I know that this is what happens. I know that this is the stage where it's hard, and I'm beating my head against a brick wall because those lines aren't just jumping into my head. They're, flubbing around, and I'm going, hang on a minute. What was that one? Oh, yeah, that was that. But I know it's going to get there. And that keeps me going, and that makes me work harder, which is why it gets there, if you know what I mean. So, and again,
but I think it's more than that. I think it is more than that. I think, knowing you, and I think, and you're a lot like me in this respect. When someone turns to you and says, "You need to learn this score by tomorrow," you not only meet the challenge, but what actually happens is that there's a fire, and you get really excited.
Absolutely,
because that's incredibly exciting. So you can't. It's not just the fact that getting excited about it. You truly feel this almost this warmth, and it's this passion that sort of.
It becomes a welcome challenge.
It is. It truly, and it's truly exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I remember going in and directing my first show and going, I have no idea. I have now way over promised what I think I'm actually going to deliver on this. And there's always that moment. And again, you'll agree with me. And I know we're saying this a lot. You'll agree with me. There's that moment where you walk out of the pitch, like the pitch meeting for a show where you've gone, you've convinced the executive, you convinced the board, you convinced whoever to greenlight the show. With you as the director. And there's that moment of excitement when you're like, yes, sweet, this is going to happen. And then it all comes crashing in and you go, oh shit, I'm now actually going to have to do this. Okay, how am I going to go about doing this? But like, again, and this is, and don't get me wrong, neither of us are sitting here and saying that there aren't challenges that people have to overcome to do these things, or there aren't legitimate psychological illnesses that affect your mood and
no,
we're certainly not saying that.
No.
But what we are saying or what I'm saying at least is that I truly believe that a huge difference for people is that tagline on the end. But I know I'll get it.
And sometimes
I'll get it.
Sometimes all it takes as well, and this is a huge problem as well for people. Sometimes all it takes is for someone to sort of lean over or even just help or support that person.
Yep.
And I think, and that's where a lot of people struggle, especially at a young age, because I think society, especially now, it's getting better, but we've sort of been bred to believe or not to necessarily accept help.
Yep.
Or welcome help, and that it's a shameful thing, and that you're weak. Especially if you're
well, you should be able to do it.
Yeah,
you should be able to do this. You should be able to do it on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, anyone who has gone far in life has never, ever done it on their own. No one, absolutely no one that you see who is successful has ever done it on their own.
No.
And remember that. So whenever you're struggling and whenever, and I think people will be surprised, and I think it's much easier to say than do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But honestly, you would be surprised how many people are willing to help you, friends, family, or actually if you articulate that or manage to. And I know that's a really difficult thing to do because it goes against our coding. It goes against what we were educated, what we were, to actually be vulnerable and ask for help. But I think people would be surprised at how many people are willing to help you.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say, here's my one per podcast. My mother always told me, my mother always said that, the way to be successful and the way to, achieve great things is to surround yourself with people who are infinitely capable. 100%. So and I found this throughout my career as a manager, as a director, as a whatever. Now, I could sit there as a director and say, I did it all on my own, and I was brilliant, and the show was brilliant, and it's fully down to me. I'd like to think I have a little bit more self-awareness than that, and I tend to, whenever I'm directing or whatever, I tend to go to people that I know to work with me. As musical directors, as choreographers, as artistic directors, as those kinds of things, because I go, hey, look, you're bloody brilliant at this, and I'm not brilliant at this. Will you give me a hand to do this? And I know in the long run it's going to make me look great because the show's going to look awesome and it's going to make me look great. So absolutely you should be surrounding yourself with people who are great at what they do and celebrate the fact that they're great. It doesn't make me a worse director.
It doesn't diminish
because I surround myself with other people who are infinitely capable of doing a job that I'm not. I also think it's incredibly important to ask for help. But not only is it incredibly important to ask for help, it's incredibly important to offer help.
Yes.
So it may be, it may be and again, maybe it has to do with my job and, part of my job is trying to recognize people who need help and step in without them asking for help. But it's incredibly important to offer help. If you see somebody struggling or somebody's struggling or whatever, a little can go a hell of a long way. Like, have you thought about this? Or like, okay, well, what if we, can I give you a hand? What if we were to tackle it, or what if you were to tackle it in this way? That can make a huge difference to somebody's outlook on something. And the other thing is like a great example I can think of from my own life is I was a pretty good English student. Could have worked harder, could have done more work, but I was a pretty good English student. I could not, for the life of me, understand what an essay was. Couldn't get it. No idea. It just did not click for me. And this went all the way through to 7th form, or what is now year 13. And I'd had very good English teachers, who'd said, look, it's an argument and it's this. And, I just didn't understand what the hell a paragraph was. Like, why the hell you would put in paragraphs, why you would do introduction and conclusion. It just didn't click to me. All my essays were just a of like argument from beginning to end.
This explains so much.
It does. It explains so much. And
I had no idea about this, by the way. This is all new to me.
And it wasn't until, funnily enough, a student teacher was taking our class, and he was like, "Dude, essays are easy. All you do is tell them what you want. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them it. Tell them you told them it." And all of a sudden, it was like,
yeah,
light bulb.
Yeah.
And from then on in, I went to university, did a history, philosophy, music degree, which required so much essay writing.
Yeah.
Went to teaching, all of that sort of stuff, which I couldn't have done if I didn't understand essay. But up to that point, I didn't get it. And it just took somebody looking at it in a completely different way for me to go, And it wasn't because I was dumb and couldn't understand what an essay was. And I think there's quite often we look at other people who don't get something in the way that we get something, and we go, "You're dumb. You don't have the capability for this, or you're not cut out for this, or you're not whatever." And it might just be that they don't get it in the way that you get it, or that's not going to trigger that eureka moment.
Yeah,
you'll do this. And I think if we can do that in our own heads, catch that negative self-talk and go, no, but I'll get there. I can do this. And if we can help each other out by going, "No, dude, you got this. You're going to get there. It'll click. You'll get there."
Give that person confidence.
Give that person confidence.
Confidence makes life insurmountably easier. In fact, I would argue that confidence is actually one of the most defining factors of what makes someone's life.
It is by far probably the most defining factor in success.
100%.
Is confidence.
100%. And not just real confidence.
Fake it till you make it, baby.
How many
times have we walked into pitch meetings going, "I have no idea how we're going to do this.
Yeah.
No idea how we're going to do this." And we're going, and we both sit there, put on a brave face and go, "Yeah, now this is going to be awesome. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this." And then you walk out going, "Okay, now we've got to come up with a way of actually doing this."
I think, once you've thrown yourself in the deep end, you sort of have to do it. And that's, and again, and either feigning or having confidence forces you to do that.
Positive self-talk. Get that positive self-talk going. Get that positive self-talk going with yourself. Get that positive self-talk going with each other. Support each other. Love each other. Give each other confidence.
Right. So, moving on to now we're going to do something a little bit different today. So usually we'll do Uncanny Valley, and I guess it sort of fits because many of the things presented at this entertainment expo possess Uncanny Valley elements to the character models, so it does work. So you may have heard a little known expo was held in it's held in Los Angeles, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah,
it was held recently, and it showcases it used to showcase the latest and greatest in gaming. And James and I are...
Well, avid gamers. We are avid gamers.
We are. I didn't want to say it.
Whenever we have the time.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to be like, we are
It's
gamers.
the saddest thing about becoming an adult is you have less time to actually do things like that. I mean, you were talking about before how you have games sitting there that like you just haven't finished.
Dust just piling up.
Well, you just don't have time. You just don't have the time to sink into it. Gone are the weekend days when you could spend all weekend, just hours and hours and hours, dumping hours and hours and hours into games and stuff like that, which is sad. But so obviously E3 happened over the last week.
It did.
And
it was a thing that happened.
And normally E3 is a time of sort of great excitement for gamers because you sort of get an idea of new big IPs that are coming out, sort of what's happening with your favorite IPs that are already out, your favorite developers, publishers, consoles, that sort of thing. And so we were relatively excited heading into E3. It's always an exciting time to sort of see what's happening. But it was a bit wah this year, wasn't it? It was a bit sort of,
So I think what's happened, I mean, first of all, so Sony decided not to enter E3, and I think there's a number of factors that contribute to why E3's been on the wane for the last few years. And in my opinion, I think the reason for this I think online social media.
Yep.
And the like actually, and online marketing has a lot to do with this.
Well, you saw that Sony are doing their own sort of conference, like what they would normally have done at E3. They're doing their own. Nintendo do the same thing with their was it Nintendo Live, or I can't remember what
Direct.
it's called. Nintendo Direct.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So they're using their
which
own,
they've done for a while now.
Yeah, but they're using their own platforms to kind of be like, look, we're going to put our product out there without having to go to E3, without having to worry about the sort of, because there's always gaffes and things that happen at E3s. There's always things that go wrong.
E3's a cringe fest.
It can be really bad.
I think because I think another problem with E3 is that you have these wonderful developers and producers of games, and artistic directors and things, and creative directors who present these games, and they're phenomenal in their fields. No one ever expected them to be good at marketing or good at getting on a stage and selling a product, and that's not on them. So I always feel really sorry for them or uncomfortable when people make fun of how awkward they are on stage, because I mean, quite often these studios, they don't have the capacity or the money to have a Steve Jobs or whatever go up there. So E3 isn't. Yes, it used to be good at hyping things, but now you release a photo of Keanu Reeves online and people lose their minds. So it's not as effective as it used to be.
Well, and you don't have to put up with the technical glitches and stuff that happen, or like early codes of games crashing, or
that's
like
right. You have control.
You have control.
You have full control of the narrative.
When you pre-do that stuff, you put it out on social media, you're controlling what goes out. That's right. But obviously E3 happened, and there were some big publishers, big developers, and stuff like that at E3. I think the big takeaway from E3 was sort of, or at least most of the reaction, and I would sort of agree with most of the reaction, was a bit sort of lackluster. It was kind of a bit like, okay. Like, there was nothing across all of the developers and publishers and stuff like that. There was nothing really earth-shattering that came out that people.
There were no new announcements. There were no new IP. There were new IPs announced, but there were no new IPs that really blew people away or really surprised.
No watershed
people
moment that people went, wow, I just can't wait for this. And even stuff that was like people were like, wow, I can't wait for, like, so Cyberpunk 2077, for example, or that sort of stuff with the Final Fantasy remake. We knew so much about them going in that it was just kind of like, maybe we'll get some gameplay. Maybe we'll get a little bit more about it, but it wasn't like we weren't expecting to be shown bits and pieces of the Final Fantasy VII remake or that sort of stuff. So there was no sort of watershed moment where you could sort of hang your hat on and go, wow, that was they owned because quite often you come out of E3 going like, which publisher, which developer, which whatever owned the conference, just like blew everybody else out of the water, and there just really wasn't that moment.
Oh, well, I think a reflection on the conference itself is probably the fact that if you had to pick something, it probably would be Cyberpunk 2077. However, Cyberpunk has been in development for 5 years, and it wasn't newly announced at the C3, so it's not new. It's been, and the whole, the Keanu Reeves announcement was genius. It was fantastic. It was very, very cool. But again, the game was always like it looks like it's going to be fantastic. It's got a great developer behind
and we've already seen trailers. We've already seen
So it's not like we went into E3 kind of going, we weren't unsuspecting or.
But you'd have to say Cyberpunk 2077, at least for my money, game of the conference. Like that. That's
easily.
That's probably the newest game. Maybe up there with Death Stranding. Probably like the games I'm the most hyped for going forward.
Agreed.
Okay, so what was your biggest loser of E3? What can you? I can think of a couple of sort of losers for E3, but
for me, I'm just gonna straight out with it. Pro Evolution Soccer 2020. They delayed the live stream of it because they had trouble streaming the gameplay
Getting
footage. Yes.
Yeah.
It was incredibly unprofessional. This is a game that comes out every year. It competes with the FIFA franchise, one of the biggest franchises in the world, and it makes huge amount of money every year.
Yeah.
More than most games. The Pro Evo guys at Konami, and again Konami,
Yeah.
have absolutely no excuse not to have a professionally run launch or showcase rather at E3. No, it's embarrassing. It was so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Also, your stream was in 720p.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
come
I know.
on. Like
it's just not good enough for a game of this end of this console generation.
Exactly. And all that makes me think is that okay, you've reused the models and graphics from 2019.
Yeah.
And it wasn't actually till later where I saw someone do it like a one-on-one with, I think, IGN or something, gameplay thing, where I thought, oh yeah, this actually looks quite cool. So the fact that, you went from bombing to, actually now that and that's public perception, and that's first, your first point of contact, and that's why these things are so important. So if you're going to do them properly. Konami, you're a loser for me. You're a loser anyway of a publisher. I think you are the most. I have a lot of ill feelings towards Konami and the projects they've destroyed over the last few years. The Square Enix one was dull.
Well, you see, the problem that I had with the Square Enix one, right, is that, look, I'm a big fan of JRPGs and that sort of stuff, and look, to their credit, a hell of a lot of old IPs, a hell of a lot of the stuff that's sort of re-releasing with a bit of remaster touch, all of that sort of stuff. Again, great, as I was saying to you before, great if you own a Nintendo Switch, because all of that's coming to Nintendo Switch, which is really, I think, it's kind of going to be the only place you're going to want to play them. You're not going to want to play them on your PS4 or your Xbox, but something like the Nintendo Switch. So great if you're a Nintendo Switch owner, and you're into your JRPGs. There's a hell of a lot coming your way. I thought that the way they sort of backed them just kind of went, or just kind of highlighted just how similar all of those games are. Yeah. And you just kind of were like looking at all these different sort of gameplay trailers for all of these and just going, okay, it's another,
because I've always found this, because there's a I wish I knew his name off the top of my head. Phenomenal character artist or designer rather, who from way back, who did all the character models and drawings for Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Dragon Quest. It's that similar Dragon Ball Z look. I'm trying to remember his name and I can't. Sorry, off the top of my head. I'm sure people will be able to tell me. But and again, Square Enix showing all those games, and I was like, it's the same characters.
You could have,
and just the same. Like you have the girl with the short brunette hair, who's like slightly sort of like mechanic-y, and and then you have like the lead guy who's got blonde Goku like hair, and then you've got it's the same tropes every game and like every Square Enix JRPG, and I'm like, ooh,
and I understand that the remasters of old stuff, but again, just doing them back to back just made you kind of go.
It was like a playlist of YouTube trailers.
Yeah, you're like, I'm bored of this now.
Yeah,
like
you could do so much and have so much flair, I know. And all it was a playlist of trailers.
It was really boring.
Awful.
I think like the biggest, I mean, and look, honestly, the biggest announcements for them were the Final Fantasy VII remake, which, to be fair, looks awesome, with the new combat system, so it's not turn-based like it was in the original. It's a little bit more like 15, where it's sort of action-based.
Or like Crisis Core. On PSP.
That kind of gameplay. It looks amazing, and so that really was tentpoling their whole thing. That and this new IP, and again, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it looks a little bit like sort of Mad Max meets Rage 2, but I mean, it was kind of like, okay, another first-person shooter set in a dystopian wasteland. We didn't get enough of like story or anything else like that to really kind of go, okay, here's the hook. It was just kind of like, okay, it's another,
And I think that leads to another issue where I think a lot of game developers really don't, or publishers even don't actually know how to showcase a game.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to do trailers. So they're phenomenal at doing things like, the art and the and the assets of a game.
It looks pretty.
It looks great, and it probably is a great game, but they don't know how to showcase it or do people don't know how to do trailers for these games. And every now and then you see really great like with the Cyberpunk trailer and like
Borderlands 3.
Borderlands 3 fantastic trailer. And like in the past when you've had fantastic trailers for games like God of War and Final Fantasy Versus 13 before it was 15 and stuff like that, where you've had truly magnificent and all of Hideo Kojima's trailers are always fantastic because he's at heart he wants to do film. So it highlights that these game developers, I should say publishers, I'm not sure if the developers are actually in charge of doing the trailers, but they probably are involved, but they don't know how to do trailers. They don't know how to showcase these great games.
Well, they kind of go, look, here's something that's really pretty and here's really awesome. But like again, there was nothing that I saw in that kind of went, here's the hook that would make me want to be like what separates this from all of the other games that look the same. That kind of what is my reason for going out and purchasing this? Like and you can get away with that, like with Final Fantasy VII, the remake. You can get away with just showing pretty pictures of it, and people will be like, oh my God, because they already know it. But they know why they're going to get the game. If you're introducing a new IP, you've got to give me a reason to buy it. Like, you've got to give me a reason to go, I'm invested in this. I'm invested in this story. I'm invested. And then again, that's what Cyberpunk 2077 has done. It's like, they haven't just shown you pretty pictures, they've kind of given you an idea of what this game's going to be like, which is kind of like why people are like, oh my God, this will be cool. This will be awesome. The biggest loser for me was Bethesda, and the biggest loser for me was Bethesda because they'd already said earlier on that so we weren't going to see any of their huge titles, like we weren't going to get anything new on Elder Scrolls 6,
which I find
is bizarre. Like
I
which
think
is the one thing that people are the most hyped for.
I reckon they're way behind on it.
But it's the one thing people are the most hyped for. And I mean, I suppose to their credit, they came out and they were like, look, Fallout 77 has been rubbish. Fallout 76, sorry, has been rubbish.
Did they come out and say...
Yeah, they were kind of like, look, we know we've had problems. It's been problems.
Have they?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They came out.
Okay. Sorry, have you? You've had problems with Fallout 76.
Yeah.
What about Skyrim? What about the bugs in Oblivion? What about the bugs in Morrowind?
It gets
what
better.
about the bugs in every single one of your games that you release? They're all buggy.
It gets better. Right?
And unfinished.
It gets better. And so the first thing they were like was like, okay, with Fallout 76, what we're going to do is we're going to put some NPCs and dialogue trees in it. And so you're like, okay, cool. And everybody lost their mind, right? And you're like, okay, cool. So we're losing our minds for the fact that Bethesda is now putting basic gameplay into a game that they released.
What it should have been to begin with.
And then they were like, and we've listened to you and we know what you all really want. So we're pleased to announce the Fallout 76 Battle Royale mode. And I just went, because that's what we need is more like a battle royale. People don't want a battle royale mode. They want Elder Scrolls 6. They want something to tell us that you are still a publisher that believes in narrative-driven storylines that have engaging and meaningful stories with morals and stuff.
They are the worst.
Not a battle royale game based on the game that's broken and buggy and rubbish. And like I was just like, you just tanked your opportunity to come out here and be like, remember us, we're Bethesda, we have done some really cool stuff. Come back to us, please come back to us. They just went out and just
the way they
pooed all over the stage,
and they really the way they handled the Fallout 76 situation, including and even the little thing. Well, no, they're not little things really, but the whole collector's edition debacle and stuff like that. They have been awful.
Oh yeah.
Awful, and people are making excuses for them.
Screw
them.
They're starting to head in the same direction as EA, where people are I'm really reticent about anything to do with EA. Speaking of that, the new Star Wars game that's coming out, what is it, Fallen Jedi?
Yeah, it looks dumb. I saw that. It looks so dumb.
It looks dumb.
It looks worse than Force Unleashed.
Yes. And it looks
like
worse
a dumb Force
but it
Unleashed.
looks worse than Star Wars games that have been cancelled.
Yeah.
Like
I know, there's been some fantastic looking Star Wars games that have been cancelled.
Yeah. Like 1313, which looked amazing.
It did,
and I mean, and it looks...
I was really excited about
I know,
that.
and it looks worse than that. Like, it just looked really average. Like, just so decidedly average.
Dumb.
That even, like...
just flat. Like,
well,
it looked flat.
Even as a Star Wars gaming fan, I was kind of like, this looks dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'll be buying that on launch. Like, you know, maybe in the bargain bin.
So
you know,
lame.
like, but
I'm not
it's
even,
just...
I wouldn't even bother.
But it's just like, you were just like, wah, wah.
Talking of games that look really flat. So, watching the Square Enix presentation. So, the whole time I was...
big hype.
So all the time I was watching it, right? Because I'm into I'm like James. I'm into JRPGs and stuff, and like I was getting a little bit excited when they were showing Final Fantasy VII, and you know they had, you know the old director of Final Fantasy VII come up and talk, and I thought it was really heartwarming and wonderful, and like the audience were really wonderful. Like it's one of the things that was that's one of the cool things about E3 is that the audience were being really receptive, and even though there's a language barrier and stuff, they were being really wonderful and receptive to these truly great legends of video gaming.
Yeah.
And
people that defined whole generations of
absolutely
of
Numora and you know and so they you know they went through all that and this whole time watching all these RPGs and the whole time there's comments on YouTube in the bottom sort of right corner so I had, you know it opened but the chat in the bottom right corner just the top of it Avengers
show us Avengers where's Avengers
literally the whole thing was Avengers and you know and it's sort of again
it was huge hype for this
again sort of solidifies Marvel fans as being some of the most insufferable fans on the planet. So anyway you get to the end of the presentation because of course they're going to do it last and so
because it was one with the big hype. It was that like everybody knew Final Fantasy even though Final Fantasy was the tentpole like everybody knew Final Fantasy. This was the big new thing that they were going to release was the Avengers game.
And so watching the further I got in, and you know about an hour and I'm still seeing these messages and I'm starting to get a little bit pissed off. Because I'm thinking, you know, these guys are showing off all this stuff, and you know these losers on the internet just going Avengers, like you know, like brain dead drongos or whatever.
Well, as if that's going to make them get to it quicker.
I know. Like, and it's like, we get it. And so, and going like, what are these guys? It's like, okay, you're watching a Square Enix.
You're clearly a Square Enix
you know, like if you knew Square, you know, what do you expect?
The all tours of JRPGs.
You know, like going to a Bethesda thing and being like, where's the games with no bugs? You know, like. It's like, you know, so you get to the end, right? And they show the trailer for the Avengers, and a little part of me was a little bit happy. So, like...
It was so bad.
It wasn't great. Okay, so...
It looked like a mobile game. Like, it's the kind of graphics and the like kind of stuff...
PS2,
I was like, late PS2,
PS3,
mobile game.
PS3
like, if somebody was like, oh, there's this new Avengers mobile game...
Yeah.
That's what I would have expected.
I think the problem with it was all the design was flat. Like it just looked flat. The Avengers themselves, like the costume design was really odd. The choice of mocap for the actors was off. One thing I will say is that some of those voice actors are phenomenal. They've got like Troy Baker,
all those
Nolan North and
all those kind of people. I mean, they have some of the best voice actors in the business.
They do.
Doing it. In fact, probably the best voice actors in the business doing it.
Which is why I'm so confused as to
why the game looks so
their
rubbish.
Faces are so off and don't look right, and they look odd, and the whole game looks flat, and there's no. Like, if they could have given it an artistic edge, or like that's one thing. The Spider-Man game did really, really well. And even like, because I mean, talking about Spider-Man, you know, seeing like the Spider-Man film, the animated film recently, Into the Spider-Verse, and phenomenal film. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, James, you're in for a treat. It's a fantastic film. You've got to watch that. You know, as soon as possible. The animation style in that is so neat. And I thought, you know, watching this Avengers thing, it was like... And I think it wasn't that the graphics were unrealistic. It's that the art style was reminiscent of this flat, like PS2...
But I sat there and I went... I sat there and I went, God of War looks better, Spider-Man looks better.
Everything
looks better. They look... I mean, I would go as far as saying that the Borderlands 2 remaster looks better.
Yeah.
Like it looked,
But it's because the
better
art style is so much better.
This just looked
Oh, it
like
was awful.
like
And the story premise was lame because it was sort of like, Captain America dies, and you're sort of like, well, that was
just lame.
That was the best character.
It was just lame.
Like,
I was just like,
Yeah,
and you could
dumb.
see it was funny. You could feel the palpable disappointment.
Yeah.
Like while you were watching it, you could just feel people going, "Ah."
And do you know the
that's
added
it. Yep.
salt to the wounds? It's gonna be I think it's gonna be episodic. So,
Yes, yeah,
which is
yeah.
even worse.
Yeah.
So like you'll get to the end, you'll be like, oh, it hasn't ended, and they'll be like, stay tuned for August 2020 or whatever. And then they ended bizarrely. They ended with this weird teaser with Ant-Man.
Yeah,
But it was
like
so
who wasn't part of the what
It was
they're
Hank
terming-
Pym or
yeah,
whatever,
like Hank
yeah.
Pym, but they like who they weren't. They were like is not part of the core
Yes.
gameplay.
Yeah, he'll come later.
But is your first DLC character,
Yeah.
and they like announced him in the trailer. It was really
Yeah,
bizarre.
but it was right at the end. It was the last thing they
it
showed.
was really
was him being
bizarre.
like, with a little robot, and then it just ended. It was like,
It was bizarre. And then the whole conference just ended.
yeah, it was like the
Like, it
lights,
was just like-
and then the screen came down. It was like,
Yeah, it was just.
and it was like, oh, okay. Does that mean we all leave? And then it went. Oh,
Oh, it was just weird. It was really weird.
how not
like,
to run an event?
it-
I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I don't get how these publishers, Square Enix, has millions and millions of dollars. You know, I don't get how these huge publishers put on such shit conferences.
Yeah,
man.
they really do.
Like, I've been to conferences that are better than that.
Yeah.
I've been.
Like,
I've been to a few, but like,
I mean,
like,
oh yeah, no,
oh
absolutely.
my god, how do you have millions of dollars and go, that'll be alright, or kind of go like, oh god,
And
what are we
some of
gonna do? What are we gonna do?
And you know, especially for people like Square
Put
Enix and stuff like that,
PowerPoint.
some of the biggest IPs on the planet. Like, but
God, yeah.
I just sit there
Final
and I go.
Fantasy.
So my overall takeaway from this, my overall impression of E3 was it was decidedly average.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you on the only scale that matters, give me your impressions of E3. This is a hard question now. You're having to think really hard.
Basing it off of every E3 that I've seen, and that's going back quite a long time. In comparison to every E3 I've seen, in comparison to all the keynotes, events, and things I've seen, a 2.
Wow.
A 2, a solid 2.
Yeah.
One of those points goes to, a whole point of that goes to Cyberpunk.
Yep.
And the other point goes to...
Death Stranding.
No, Death Stranding wasn't there.
No, that's right, yeah.
Probably the bits of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And like taking bits of pieces from other things like remasters and stuff.
Look, I'm not going to be much different. I'm going to go for a 3. It was
I was
so
thinking a 3 as well,
underwhelming and so disappointing.
There's no excuse.
I just walked out of watching that going,
It took away all of the excitement and cool things about E3 and left all the cringe.
And
All
normally-
hey guys,
Yeah, and normally,
Yeah.
like there'll be at least one thing you could be like, "Oh my god, that was amazing," and we'll be
Yeah.
talking about it for weeks,
Yeah.
and we'll be like,
Yeah.
you know, like I can't wait for this game to come out, can't wait, blah blah blah. But no, I didn't get any of that. I was just kind of like, yeah, that was a thing that happened.
Yeah, and I'm actually with you. The Death Stranding trailer was awesome.
Yeah.
and like it's one of those things that like, and I'm still way more excited about that than pretty much everything I saw at E3. And it's one of those things, you see the trailer and it's classic Hideo Kojima. You watch it, you think this is awesome. You get to see the trailer and you're like,
I have no idea what the hell's going on.
I have no idea.
Why are there babies?
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is? Yeah.
Yeah. What
Norman Reedus is doing something
I
weird.
know.
I have no idea what's
know.
happening. But
Yeah.
I'm still gonna play this
Yeah.
game. Like, you know,
and
like,
it's Mards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? This is the United Cities of America. Like, what's going on?
What's happening?
And why are they like?
And you know the whole thing
it's
is you're going to end up playing the game and still have no idea what the hell's going on. And
Thanks,
be like,
Kojima.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
cool.
that.
So I think that wraps up our little bit on
Yeah.
E3. Okay.
30-second waffle.
30-second waffle. Here we go. Okay, so we had a little bit of a conversation in the break, and
Yeah,
I'm
we
going to go
did.
first. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to go
James
first.
is going first.
Excellent. So bring it on. Let's see what we've got. This week.
Just mixing up these three.
These 3 ones. I say, I have a choice of 3. Okay, So this is a Discord question from Esoterica Superfan. Why having bleached hair should be mandatory for everyone at some point of their life?
Great question.
At some point of their life. Obviously very topical.
What makes you ask that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what made them ask that.
Where did that come from?
Okay. Having bleached hair should be mandatory for everybody at some point in their life because it is a well-known adage that blondes have more fun. Blondes having more fun, everybody should experience that at least once in their life so that if you are brunette like me naturally, you can experience how the other half lives, which, as I have found out, is so much better. The looks that you get in the street, the compliments you get from everybody you pass, just the looks of adoration are why this should be compulsory for everybody at least once in their life.
That's very good. That was very good.
Are you having more fun?
I'm definitely having more fun. No, honestly, as soon as this play is over, the hair is going. The hair is going to some vaguely respectable colour that's not yellow.
It just reminds me. Oh, it's not the time, probably.
All right. Yeah, no.
I'm going to quickly say it.
Yeah.
So, the ending to Silent Hill 3, right? Silent Hill 3, horror film.
Yes.
Horror game. Sorry. Although it probably is a film as well now.
I thought you were going to go for
horror game. Psychological horror, terrifying, right?
Yep.
The whole thing's artistically terrifying, as the Japanese do really
well.
well.
Yeah.
The game ends. There's no comedy throughout the whole thing. The game ends, right? And your character, I think Heather from memory is her name, goes up to this detective that you've been working with, and she's dyed her hair. And you kind of think, oh, she's dyed her hair, because girls quite often when they go through quite psychologically damaging things will do something like change their appearance in some way. And you'll see this woman will quite often like dye their hair after a breakup or something like that. And you think, oh my God, Heather, you poor thing. Those monsters have terrorized you so much that you've gone and dyed your hair.
Yeah.
And
this was happening to me. My children have terrorized me so much.
Yeah.
That,
and that's exactly right. And anyway, she comes over and
scared.
she gets asked like, Heather, why have you dyed your hair? This is how the game ends.
Yeah.
Up to this point, it's been a masterpiece and subtlety. He goes, why have you dyed your hair? Heather says, well, don't you think blondes have more fun?
Oh my God. Yeah.
And the credits roll.
Boom.
This is a game where
drop.
You've been in a room and a bathtub's filled up with blood and the walls have started becoming alive, and that's how the game ends.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love it.
It is brilliant, but also what the heck. Anyway.
All right.
I had to, sorry.
Yeah.
Just following on from the whole E3 thing. Discord, and this is number 1 Esoterica fan.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay, this should be a good one.
I love how that's underlined as well. Yeah. Why James is the most extra person you will ever meet.
I love that. That is
Ted
so
Star.
good.
Hi, Ted Star.
That's so good.
Why is James the most extra person I will ever meet? Look at his hair. Right now. Look at it. Look at his fucking hair. Look at his face right now. Look at what he's doing. He's moving his eyebrows up and down in a way that I'm not quite sure if he's having a stroke or he's mastered. I don't have to tell you. Just listen to the fucking podcast. Then you will learn how extra he is.
It's amazing. It was a beautiful answer. I'm feeling very.
It came straight from the heart.
Yeah, I'm feeling
It really did.
All right,
really did.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's do this. This is obviously from Anthony because it's got nothing written on the back of it.
I'm more the minimalist.
I see. What?
I actually can't remember this question. I obviously did it like a month ago.
What
I can't
show could have been greatly improved by pyrotechnics?
I forgot about it. See, and I remember writing this because I remember thinking, I hope James thinks that I was thinking.
I need to see the clock, so here we go.
Yeah.
The show, and I'm going to use the show that I have done here as an example. The show that could have been the most improved by pyrotechnics would have been Evita.
Yes!
And the reason that this show could have been improved by pyrotechnics is we all know that it doesn't matter how artistically rubbish your show is, if you have pyrotechnics, people will love it. I think that there is a moment right at the end of Evita where she's in the coffin and the lights come down and Biron's standing there. We could just blow her out of the coffin with like pyrotechnics and confetti and glitter, and it would have been amazing. Yeah.
Yes. Was
that what you were hoping for?
That was exactly what I was hoping for. Oh, night, mate. I'm exhausted now. I need to lie down. That was fantastic. It was beautiful.
All right.
Yeah.
The last one. Here we go.
Fantastic scenes.
You, God damn it. You're avoiding my question. I hate it.
Let's swap it. Go on. No, go on. All right. What are you going to do about it?
All right. Yeah. Yeah, I have to give.
You can't swap.
I have to give. That's it. Unsubscribe.
People listening, you can't even see.
You wouldn't even have known.
You wouldn't even know right now what we're doing.
So the reason
people watching, I don't care.
Yeah, the reason we're doing this is a question I asked Ant, and
there's even a smiley face on it.
There's a smiley face because it's a mean question.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna need don't start it yet because it's a long question.
It is a
long.
long.
I'm gonna be like 10 seconds left after. Okay.
After read the question.
So just it is far more satisfying to work with. It's so nice being able to actually read this. I'm just kidding.
It's my writing. That's why.
It's yeah.
Producer Caroline has doctor's handwriting.
Yeah. Love you. Yeah. It is far more satisfying to work within the boundaries and I can't even read this without cringing. It is far more satisfying to work within boundaries and restrictions creatively than to have absolute autonomy of your end product. Oh, James is just... There's hooks right now. There's hooks right under my skin.
I was trying to think of a question that would really...
If you don't have restrictions, then you aren't being withheld to certain standards. Mm-hmm. And that is, if you somewhat step out of line or do something unpredictable to people who don't expect that, then that's not on. Mm-hmm. You need to be restricted. You need to be held like a peacock in a cage. You cannot fly away. You're an ostrich. Okay? And if you had full control, then who knows what you could do. You know what you could do? If you had full control and you didn't have the boundary... No, you know what? Screw your 30-second wild ball. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go for a 60 seconds. Match that. If you had full control, then you know what? What are you going to do? Oh, great. Like, we're going to support you and you're going to do something fully creative without us roadblocking you all of the way. How could we ever... we can't let you do that. If you do that, then you might produce something truly worthwhile and not the same old fucking trite. So that's the answer to your question, James. Thank you.
Yes, I knew it would get a triggered response, that one. I was trying really hard to think of what is the worst question I could possibly ask you, and it's worth pointing out, as if you haven't already told, Anthony's opinion runs completely polar opposite to this. We both believe very much in autonomy around our own creativity. And autonomy for the products that we produce. So, I'm sorry, 100%. It was a mean question, but I really wanted to see your answer to that one. That
that got me all riled up. Oh, wow, I'm feeling really fresh now. I got I'm like shedding hair. I've actually...
Join us for next week's podcast, where Andy will be bald.
I'll just be a bald fraud instead.
I'll be blonde and you'll be bald.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be the BB podcast, brought to you by B1 and B2.
Yeah, B1. You'll have all my hair.
Just stuck on.
Like
clumps. Yeah, that's exactly how this is going to go.
Not very creative, but we're restricted by the boundaries that we have. We're restricted.
That producer Caroline has put on
producer
us.
Caroline restricts us creatively. I would prefer it if she had autonomy.
She makes us do stuff.
Yeah.
Please send help.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here. Again, come and check us out on the live streams up every Sunday and Wednesday. All sorts of really cool games and stuff like that going on there.
Yeah.
Check the link below for links to Twitch, Discord, everything else like that that's going on. Come and join our very, very cool little active community. We'd love to see you there and love to interact with you. Thank you for being so understanding of us being away. And it's so nice to be back.
Yeah. And if you don't give a shit about any of that, we'll see you next week.